everyone. We're Meeple Talk. I'm Adam.
And I'm Stephanie.
And we're here to talk about Unearth.
Ooh, it's a new 2017 game by Jason Harner and Matthew Ransom. Also, Brotherwise Games, they are the publishers. So it's a relatively new game. And generally what it is you've got this one tribe of people. They once belonged to a grand, wonderful, advanced civilization. And for whatever reason...
Something happened.
It got wiped out. So this little group of people are trying to remember, get back to their roots, remember who they were. So they're out seeking, trying to reclaim, rebuild, and remember. That's the whole tagline of it. They're trying to find their ruins and dig them up and restore them, use their... stones that they collect to build wonders, and we're going to pretty much be going on a bunch of dice rolls in order to make that happen.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it's definitely a card-winning dice rolling game.
Yeah.
With dice placement is very important.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll explain how the game is played, and then we'll be back for reviews.
Yeah, let's check it out. All right, so welcome to the setup. Upon initial inspection, you can see that there's really not a whole lot to the game component-wise. We'll start here with the different decks available to us. So throughout the game, we're going to be collecting these ruins, and that's what these colored cards are. Also sitting on top of them are what are just simply named stones. These are other components that you're going to be collecting throughout the game as well. Every player, in order to do these collections, you're going to be rolling dice in order to do so. You'll see that every player will have their own set with different types, like different face values or face numbers on them. And you're going to be choosing which ones you're going to be rolling on the cards in order to do your collections. These ruins are going to be replenished as you collect them and draw here. But coming back here, this is the other part. These are other areas that you're going to be collecting as well. Your stones, as you notice in the front of this board, they're going to be built in a sort of circular fashion, and they'll be filled by what we call these wonder tokens. There are greater wonders, lesser wonders with different points values, also these named wonders, and they will also have certain benefits when it comes to point scoring. So these are some of the items that you're going to be collecting. These will not replenish throughout the game. Also, every player is going to be collecting what we call Delvar Cards. They're really just cards that modify things like your die rolls, if you get to do re-rolls, if they're rated higher or lesser than the actual roll, things like that. We all start with 2 per player, but you'll also have opportunities to collect them throughout the game as well. Now, these ruin cards that, as I mentioned earlier, we've got our deck that we're going to be drawing from, but also in addition to that, we've got what's called the End of Age cards. Even though there are multiples of them, we're only going to be randomly drawing 1. And what will happen is that it'll go on the bottom of the main ruin deck, and it may describe some kind of end-of-game event that will need to be satisfied as well. So these are randomly drawn to change it up per game. And then also, as we're collecting these stones that I mentioned earlier, we've got our little draw bag as well, because as we lay these cards out, we're going to be drawing stones at random, and also throughout the game too, you may have to collect stones from the bag directly. So that's what we'll be housing those for your use. So really, component-wise, not a whole lot to it. It's a simple setup.
So for actually playing the game, we simply go clockwise. Each player then will have 2 phases in their turn. One is to play out any Delvar cards they want to play on that turn. So that will be done first. And that sometimes will affect the rolls that they make, or it may be a condition that they have to complete before they roll. So then the player can roll one of their die on one of the cards. Now, you'll see there's 3 D6s, there's a D8 and a D4. So that affects the strategy of what die you're going to roll, depending on what you want to get. Now, in order to get these stones, when you roll your die, let's say I'm going to roll on this light blue ruin here, I rolled a 2. If I roll a 1, 2, or 3, I can claim one of the stones on that card. Then I can put it in my personal area. And you'll see here we have 6 stones in a circle. And when you can create a full circle, then you're allowed to put a wonder in the center. Now, the wonders are the things that will score you points at the end of the game. You can get a lesser wonder, and the lesser wonder at the bottom, it shows a series of boxes with question marks. That means that any stones will satisfy the condition of a lesser wonder. If you want a greater wonder, which is anywhere between 6 and 8 points, you need to have all of one color. So these are harder to get. And then, of course, with the named wonders, they all have specific conditions that you need to meet. And these cards will sometimes give you extra points at the end of the game. Sometimes they will help you during the game, and there's some text to explain what they do. When they're taken off of their card, then they are not replaced. So there's only 6 in the entire game with these named wonders. So that's what the stones do. Now let's say you roll and you don't get a 1, 2, or 3. Let's say you get a 6. In that case, that die will then sit on that card until all of the dice on that card equal or exceed this number at the top, 15, in this case. So when that happens, the player who has the highest number on their die claims the card. So they get the card. They don't get the stones on it when they claim the card. Unless it's possible to roll a 1, 2, and 3 and claim the card and claim a stone. But the point is, whoever has the highest number will claim that card. If the two numbers are the same, let's say we have 2 people, we have a 2 here. The die that has the most faces will then get the card. The other player who doesn't get the card will then get a Delvar card as a kind of like a consolation prize. And they can then use that. These Delvar cards are not actually shown to the other players. They are kept secret. So play continues around until all of these cards are taken, and each time one is taken, as Steph mentioned, another one comes out. When this deck is done, there will be a final card. In this case, it's the Destiny of the Delvers. This might be the last card, and it has some kind of ending condition. But then all of the rest of the cards, after there's no deck left, have to also be picked up before the game ends. So for scoring, you will score points for these wonders that are in the center of the stones. The stones themselves don't give you any points. And you also get points based on a set collection of the different colors of ruins that you have. For example, if you only have 1 light blue, you'll get 2 points for it. But if you have 3 light blues, you'll get 12, and so on and so forth. You can also get 5 points for having at least 3 of these at the end of the game, of 3 wonders, or for having 5 different colored cards, you'll get an additional 5 points. And that's basically all of the scoring. And that's the whole game.
Yeah, so as you can see, it's a pretty simple layout and pretty simple gameplay. Not a lot that you really have to go into. Would you like to start with what you think of the game?
Sure. Well, first of all, the quality of the game is very good. The cards are fairly thick. They feel good. The artwork is really cool. Like, they have this kind of like, I don't know how to call it, maybe an Art Deco kind of abstractionist style. I really like the look of the cards and everything. But it's a very simple game with just cards and dice, and then these, little hexes, the stones. I felt that, first of all, the turns go very quickly. You basically can do 2 things, and if you don't have any Delvar cards, you can only do one thing. It's basically place and roll and place your die. And there's a lot of strategy involved in it, because there's the 5 cards, and you could roll your dice on several different cards, and then a Delvar card might allow you, for example, to re-roll all of those dice. And then you collect additional things on those dice. Or, you have to consider your strategy. Do you want to get a lot of stones at the beginning and collect your wonders early? Because the cards run out fairly quickly. I think when you play the game, at first you think you've got a lot of time, and then the cards begin to run out, and then you realize you don't have a lot of time, and you didn't get enough stones. So there's definitely an early and an end game kind of strategy. And then sometimes you're going for the stones, sometimes you're going for the cards. I really like the light but interesting strategy in this game.
Yes.
I like the colors of it. Theme is really important to me. I really like a game that has a good theme. And this is a very abstract game. It maybe doesn't have a lot of theme, but it has a lot of, I don't know how to explain it, some kind of dice rolling, dice placement and appeal to it. It's, as a light game, it's a very refreshing game. I haven't seen a game, with this particular combination of things. It's in some ways similar to Spice Road, but the idea that you're placing your dice, and your dice then can be used for other things on the cards, is really cool. So overall, I really liked it.
I would honestly have to agree, because on the surface, visually it's very interesting. It's hard to walk past this originally when we saw these at some of the conventions. Walking past, it's not like you can easily look at it and be like, just dice, whatever. It has a visual appeal that right away you're like, oh, wait a minute, what is this? And even though it's a very simplified setup, it really... it's done really, really well. I like how when you think of dice games, what can you possibly do with them? How can you make them a little bit different or change them up somehow? It just seems like when you have these ideas that you come across sometime in life and you're thinking, wow, that was so simple. Why didn't I think of that? I feel like this is a game that really took advantage of that. How, like, when it comes to placement and hexes, we've seen different kind of hex configuration games that kind of build in these same kind of expanding area zones before. But doing it with a combination of, it's a little bit, strategy, a little bit chance. You're getting rewarded both on high and low rolls, whether you're going for the cards themselves, whether you're going for the stones. You do have multiple paths to victory. And I find that the interesting part of it is that not only do you have a mix up in the gameplay, just dependent on the sets you can probably collect, because we didn't mention this earlier, at the beginning of every game, a certain number of cards are removed from play. They won't be drawn at all. So it's not guaranteed every time if maybe the multiples of the same color set are going to be giving you the most points, or if it's going to be just the unique sets that you have, or even depending on the number of players, we have found that it allowed us to either create more of the hex circles versus fewer. So sometimes that might be the more dominating point scoring for you. So depending on the number of players, I think they do a really good job with very few components to make it as varied as possible. I really like the way they've done that.
And you brought up a good point about the gameplay. No matter how you roll, you can use that to your advantage by changing your strategy a little bit. You might be going for 6 stones to get a greater wonder, but maybe you don't get the stone that you want, but instead, maybe you rolled a high number on this card, and then you begin to think, well, I already have a light mauve or whatever this is. Maybe I can capture this card on my next turn instead and go for the set collection, and then later, when more of the yellow stones come up, I can try and grab another one of those.
And the other thing we didn't mention...
So it's kind of cool that way.
Yeah, and the other thing we didn't mention earlier, too, with the gameplay overview, is that generally, as long as you have any dice in your reserve, you have to use them to play on the cards. If they are all already placed, you can then take them off, either re-roll for the same card or re-roll and reposition them on another card. So it gives you some flexibility, and as Adam was saying, you always get something, high, low roll, low roll. You always get something out of your rolls, whether you want to abandon a quest, so to speak, a card quest, or get onto one that seems to be a hot item that you think you might be able to score because you have that D8 and nobody else had that, but it's almost close to being claimed with the minimum point values. So there's never this issue that we've encountered yet of having a lost or wasted turn. That's one of the things that really rubs me raw with a lot of other games is when you have this frustration through wasted turns or wasted movements. This one, you never seem to encounter that. So I think it's a bang-up job. I mean, I love also the storyline. I love how it's simplified in the sense that you have just enough meat in it, to get into the idea of the game, but they realize that sometimes too much background story may not necessarily be needed at all to have a good time with the game. So the thing that really makes me think of how good of a game this is or isn't is how do I feel when I'm playing this game? And it's not a super intense, high, energy game from the chance and the result. It's not a super, intense strategic, how do I perfectly lay these out or things like that. But it still makes me feel really good to play this game. I love it as a casual passive game. It has just enough intrigue for me. So I think, I just really enjoy playing this game. So I can't say enough. And I love the artwork too. It's styled very, very well. Detailed and simple but just really good. So I can't say enough.
So that's our review. As for ratings, as of this video, we're going to be giving ratings on our videos because why not, right?
Yeah.
So I would give this game probably an 8.5. I think it's a great game. I highly recommend it. I think if you look at it and you like it, like just from looking at pictures, I think you should definitely get it.
You know what? I was kind of debating with that score too because I did something similar. I was thinking 8.5, 9. It's just one of those that I had a hard time settling on, but I know it's really high up there in my ranking. So I you know what? For what it is, I really enjoy this. So absolutely, give it a go.
Yep.
Yeah. But thank you so much for watching. And you know what? We've got plenty of other videos. Come check them out too. We'll see you
later.
soon.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.